WWT presents Experts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. My name is Matthew Coble, your host as usual, and today we have with us two experts from Worldwide Technology in this episode of our four-part series about media, entertainment, and gaming, and how that vertical industry approaches data center and cloud, digital security, and today's topic, networking. With me today from kind of the media, entertainment, and gaming industry standpoint is Kyle Lindsey, who's a principal consultant at Worldwide Technology, and he leads our efforts in that industry in media, entertainment, and gaming. If you'd like to talk about digital twins, AI, virtual reality, augmented reality, infrastructure, really any of those topics related to that industry vertical, Kyle is your guy. Also joining us is Brianna Farrell, who's a technical solutions architect with WWT, and she has over a decade of networking and infrastructure experience, and she really loves working with clients, working with her peers, and takes a special love of mentoring the up-and-coming talent whom she speaks with quite frequently too. So delighted to have you both with us today. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Matt. Really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Really excited. And hi, everyone out there as well.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in. So, my own start in the gaming world goes back to like the single player days, right? So I know that dates me a little bit, but back then, you needed the game, you needed a good computer, decent hardware and that, and just the time to play. And somewhere along the way, I can't remember if it was Doom or Quake, but it's like my introduction to the multiplayer gaming world. And we played in the office in the network locally at the office, which made that great. But that also was kind of that period of the shift from the single player gaming world into multiplayer. And now everything's multiplayer, and it's all about low latency, high performance, and the complexities that it takes technically to make that happen. And you can't do that without a rich, robust IT infrastructure and a network. So what is the current state of IT in the gaming industry, and where is it going at this point?
Yeah, Matt, it's hard, right? The expectations for the players out there, when they're spending a lot of money on these PC rigs, on Xboxes, on PlayStations, it can't go down. So the requirements around reliability, I started also long time ago, the whole concept of asymmetrical connections, having bidirectionality within our networking, it wasn't that important. The requirements that these games now have from a latency standpoint and from a jitter standpoint are amazing. I mean, it really requires a very robust network to be able to support these gaming and experiences.
No, absolutely. I'm in the similar boat. I actually, when I was younger, my doctor prescribed video games for me because I was born with a congenital cataract, and it actually helped me learn to track better. So I get to tell people that story all the time, that I have a prescription somewhere that says play video games.
Nice.
But it's very similar. I think in the network world, I think we're used to source IP destination and making sure that you get from point A to point B. But now with the video game industry becoming way more robust, you've got gadgets and different kinds of identities is what we call it, that you're contending with. So it's a lot of complexity, and the demand is huge. So it's really interesting to be part of this space and understanding those nuances.
Well, so, game studios have always really been those early adopters, right? The industry historically has helped lead the charge with advancements in areas like networking, with all the work that's going on with GPUs. Which of those advancements in the gaming world should other industries really take note of and sort of lean into to watch what's happening so they can make their own organizations better?
Yeah, I think one thing we're seeing a lot of is the expansion of the use of real-time 3D. Mm-hmm. You think of like Epic Games with their Unreal Engine, the Fortnites of the world. You think of that from a video game standpoint. We're actually having a lot of very interesting conversations of leveraging real-time 3D within the business scenario, within digital twins, within data visualization. And once again, to have these real-time 3D streams and interactivity really requires a robust network.
Yeah, I think that it's just going back to the same question of robust, making sure that we're not just having connectivity for the users to reach what they're trying to get to, but also how do we securely do that without interfering? So I think these types of questions in the industry have just gotten bigger and more complex because now we're contending with a lot of network, especially home networks, which is something I don't think this industry really recognized until lately with the multiplayer capabilities and needing to be able to get across a tunnel essentially, and protecting that as well.
Well, I do want to build on y'all's answer there a little bit and ask you whether there are particular industries that you think are either doing a good job kind of tracking media entertainment and gaming, so bringing those ideas back to those organizations, or maybe there's some industries that you think should be doing a little bit more of that and really paying more attention. Do y'all have any opinions about that?
Yeah, I've seen some great work in healthcare. I know we at WWT have done some amazing work with St. Jude's. So that is an area that I've seen, and I've seen in finance when it comes to the data visualization aspect of it. I've seen some really cool examples there.
Now, Brianna, how about you?
Absolutely. I think all the organizations I've worked with healthcare, global financials especially, I think that visibility part has become such an important space because having to contend with users no longer really being static, they're moving around a lot. So now you're having to understand locale as well. So a lot of these organizations, even if they're not in a gaming industry, they're contending with the same thing, and that is speed and security around what they're trying to access.
Okay, so as games become increasingly personalized and multi-platform, there's a lot of data flying around, which brings up security concerns. So as gaming companies become much more data-driven and open to using artificial intelligence, how is everything being secured?
Well, I think some of that depends on what is currently in play. I think there's different types of protection. There's endpoint protection, and then there's workload protection. So when I say workloads, that could be in a data center. That could be where the stuff is being, like services, I should say, is being held or being taken care of in a way. But now things are kind of going to the cloud. So that AI component of being able to have that predictive analytical behavior type of reporting is becoming very influential in the gaming space and also any space that is trying to access data that is up in the cloud so that you get that visibility. I think that is something we have needed and for a long time because it also influences your AI and being able to have those types of analytical predictive measures or sometimes reactive to be able to make decisions without a human interaction, but have it be accurate and be able to prevent any sort of security issue, but also to prevent even a bottleneck on a network to make that so that you don't have to wait on someone to troubleshoot an item as opposed to immediately fixing or resolving an issue.
Well, Kyle, if you would build on that, I'm curious also just more generally, how are you seeing AI starting to make a play in these industries too?
Yeah, AI is a very interesting topic. It comes into every conversation we have. Mm-hmm. And it's not just about generative AI. It's not just about creating art from text, really. It's machine learning, it's natural language. It's the full broad spectrum of AI is where we're having those conversations. I just wanted to take a step back to something that Brianna was talking about around security. With our friends in the video game industry, it's really a very broad conversation. If you think about it, some of the most valuable intellectual property, IP, out there is owned by the video game companies. So they need to protect it not only from the game development phase of building games, but all the way through the delivery of those games to the end users. Mm-hmm. So that's really a broad topic that we talk to our customers about a lot.
All right, well, Brianna, I'm going to come back to you with this question. So if we think about Secure Access Services Edge, right, or SASE, that's relatively new still in the industry, and I think relatively new to media, entertainment, and gaming. So how will our clients in that market, maybe the market more generally, start implementing this into their strategies and really get this deployed out across their infrastructures?
I think it really comes down to a crossroads. A lot of organizations I've worked with, when they are considering SASE, is to first understand SASE, which not to make it sound super simple, but it's really securing your edge to cloud. So instead of having to rely on your data center or your branch offices, for example, to handle the security, because the goal is to bring that security stack as close as you can to the user or to the device that's trying to access a cloud application, for example. You want that security to be as close because you don't want to prevent any sort of bottleneck going on. Because every time you add a layer of security on top of the network, your goal is to not make it cumbersome. So I would say SASE is an interesting modernization effort from a traditional network standpoint, because you're taking your network and your security and you're putting them underneath one umbrella essentially, and trying to create, I don't want to call it a single pane of glass, but you're at least reducing the pane of glasses so that you get better visibility. You can create policies that make sense in a way of adding that security on top of making network prioritization protocols within the same window, which is pretty remarkable when you are, say, the person having to administer this or to be the IT person supporting this, so that you can actually influence the network speeds as opposed to having like latency or long haul traffic. So say if a user was at home trying to turn on a game and it's cloud-based, like for me, I play my games using a cloud console. I want it to be fast. I don't want to have to jump through a ton of hoops to prove who I am, but also I appreciate it because I want my data secured. So these are the types of conversations I have with organizations all the time, because SASE the goal is to create that secure connectivity, but make it user-friendly. Because I think that's really where we've been stuck for a long time, is improving connectivity, but putting that security layer and not overcomplicating it. I think, especially in the gaming industry, since it is very leading in this area when it comes to relying on the cloud. I think they were probably one of the first to really go for it in the cloud, as opposed to some other organizations that were nervous, because having that data outside of your I would call it like your brick and mortar, can be a little scary, but it is a big transition that we're seeing in the field. And we've worked with a lot of organizations who are headed that way to modernize their network.
Yeah, definitely. The game companies are very cloud-first organizations. And then once again, interestingly enough, we just worked with one of our gaming companies where they're truly global. So they're reaching across the globe to get developers and folks to help them build the games, and it's all about velocity, right? So if they're sending out or onboarding a individual in Eastern Europe or a small studio with 2 or 3 people, just shipping out a firewall is a really challenging way to do it. So the SASE is providing for a lot of velocity, a lot of direct impact to how fast they can build the games.
All right, well, if we're talking about that, velocity for organizations that SASE can create, it seems to me a lot of organizations need to figure that out for themselves. And I know out on WWT.com, we've got a lot of great content around SASE. You can sort of measure where you are on that journey, understand how to get started. But Brianna, if we talk to you about that, as you talk with clients, how do you tell them to get started with SASE in the first place? And what are some steps that they need to make sure they're taking along the way to be successful implementing those technologies?
I think the first big thing is to understand your traffic flows. And when I say that for organizations, they need to understand, like their user traffic, of course, like user to app to app, and then of course, even their workload. So if they are in a cloud presence, they want to understand where their clouds are located, meaning what provider, but also your use cases. I think that is one of the biggest delimiters here, because some of those use cases may not just simply be, we want to improve visibility. It could be, we want better agility. We want to be able to deploy at scale at a faster pace. And with SASE, it really does offer that. If you have multiple locations that you need to deploy, or you want to do a hybrid work initiative. We have worked with a lot of organizations, and it helped develop a lot of these research and insights that we actually will take and help organizations make decisions with because of that field experience. But really, again, I think it goes back to your use cases and understanding those, and then developing a roadmap or a strategy that is going to help you along the way, because SASE, again, is the network and security for your network at this point. So you would want to have both of those teams also present in this conversation to go through those use cases and understanding how you want to deploy this. And that is something we could work with from WWT. We've worked with numerous organizations to do this, because that's really going to be your roadmap and your first stepping stone, is to figure what do we want to do and what are we trying to accomplish. And it could be something as simple as that.
Yeah, the thing that I've seen, surprisingly enough, with as large as the game companies that we work with are, they actually have relatively small teams. So for me, the SASE really enables scale. It helps them to scale these small teams with very diverse hybrid workforces globally.
This episode is brought to you by Google Cloud. Future-proof your infrastructure with powerful data and analytics. No ops, just code, built for developers and highly reliable. Use Google's core infrastructure, data analytics, and machine learning to protect your data and apps securely in the cloud.
Well, I know there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the gaming space, the media entertainment space too, and I'm particularly fond of how we're blurring the lines between digital experiences and physical experiences, right? So there's some game worlds that are becoming theme parks. We've got mixed reality, blending spaces together in the real world and the digital world, and other things like that. So what activities like that have you most excited, and what should organizations be prioritizing from a technology standpoint to make sure they're ready to make those things possible?
Yeah, I've even though the word has had a very rough time over the last couple of years, I do still like the concept of the metaverse, that blending of the physical and digital. And we see this constantly with our theme park partners. Is it a video game company, or is it a media company? Or are the media companies becoming video game companies? It's all really blending here. I will say, though, for the most part, most of our clients are experimenting. Early trials, trying to get some of this technology under their skill set within their employees and get used to it, operationalizing it. It's one thing to do this in a proof of concept. It's a very different thing to do it in a production environment. So we're early, but every single one of the folks I talk to are experimenting.
Yeah, I think this is something too that I'm interested in personally, just because I do see this becoming a new normal in gaming, especially when you have that multiplayer atmosphere, and to be able to, in a way, it's like a way to meet people. We're kind of socially, I think we're becoming more reliant on that as opposed to in-person hangout, I guess. But to have that be more realistic does require the technology behind it. And I think we're in that infancy of it. I mean, we've seen it even with live concerts in the metaverse, for example, I think is such a unique way to bring people together. I think it's something that it's going to take off as we keep growing in this industry.
Cool. Well, I want to ask both of you this question. I want you to give me like your top 2 or 3 things here. Something about the idea of networking, infrastructure that supports that in the media, entertainment, and gaming space. People listening out there, whether they're in that vertical or otherwise, like what are the top 2 or 3 things you say you really need to think about these things to be successful in this space? So give that thought for a second. And Kyle, what's your take on that?
I would say reliability. The expectation of this always on access to entertainment, gaming, it's table stakes. It can never go down. So I think probably just the sheer fact of reliability is so critical.
Mm-hmm. Brianna, how about you?
It kind of is similar to how I was thinking. But more so the user experience. I think you need to have that reliability, and on top of that, because your user experience is really going to be indicative of how popular your game is or your system. So to have your users happy really does reflect your product as well. So I think that's really important when you are considering these different options: is how will this affect my users?
Yeah. All right, last question for you. I want you to peer into the crystal ball a little bit. This could be professional, personal, something you're excited about. If you're looking out 2 years, 5 years, somewhere in that time frame, what are you most excited to see in the media, entertainment, and gaming space? Let's hear it.
I'm very bullish on augmented reality, virtual reality, the whole spatial compute as it pertains to sports. I think there are some really amazing ways to integrate technology into sports, whether it be actually in a field, in a ballpark, in a sport, or in your house, and that connectivity. I think there's a lot of exciting things there.
Yeah, a good one. Brianna, how about you?
I think it's a little bit of the visibility, and I don't just mean that like seeing what's being done in the game, or if you're getting like any sort of reporting of any sort of issues or anything like that. I think visibility is cool, but I also really love the game industry and how they are embracing higher resolutions. Mm-hmm. I think it has really made it believable. Like even watching, I have family members who are younger and they can't get over how graphically enhanced this all has become compared to back in the day when I played Heretic and Doom. It really wasn't something I thought about. So I think it goes back to even that virtual reality, the idea that it's going to get so realistic, and it's kind of interesting to see. I hope it gets better in that space, because it really does make a difference in your gameplay.
Yeah. And I'm going to agree with that one. I mean, I go back and look at some of the games I played as a kid and how immersive and fun they were, but visually, like, really? That was it? But, it was great. And now that, the visualization of things, the realism of things is spectacular. All right. Well, thank you both so much for coming today. I appreciate you joining us and being part of this 4-part series that we're doing. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us as well. Another great WWT Experts show. We've got lots more coming up in this series. If you enjoyed it, we'll be doing 3 others on media, entertainment, and gaming related to cloud and data center, digital, and also security. So if you enjoyed this, check those out. And there's a vast catalog of back events that you can watch on demand at any time on all kinds of topics out on wwt.com/events. That's where you can find all that. We'd love to hear your feedback. So if you've shared some time with us today, please get in touch, do the survey, drop us an email, let us know how you thought it went. And that wraps our time for today. Thank you for coming, and we will see you next time.